One of the things with online presentations is that you really can't see, others, right? And you just don't know whether, you're audible or whether people are able to follow you. This is a real challenge, actually, with online anything, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the expressions are not known, right? So you don't know whether, we're uh, just the talk is boring or whether it's interesting. So it's kind of interesting. So I was thinking, that ideally you should have two monitors, one to just to look at the, you know, the people, how their reactions are, and then one to have the slides. I
Yes.
think that might compensate some part of it. And there'll be times when I'd be just talking. I mean, I'm sure you have the same, and connection is already dead like 5 minutes before. So,
So we have Harsha. We have some more people joining.
yeah,
I think
Good
that
morning, Mr. Harsha.
right now it's 11:02. We'll give it another minute, I'd say, and then we'll start.
sure.
So Harsha, we'll start now. I'll just welcome everybody, and then I'll get you started in another minute.
Sure.
So good morning to everybody, and it's great to see that more people are also joining in into our from the Soil to the Sun webinar. And just a couple of things for all of those who've joined me. Uh, am I audible, Niharika? Okay, so just a couple of things for everybody who's joined in. That one, if we have any questions, instead of speaking out, it'll be great if we can write in our questions into the chat window, and both of the Daily Dump and the EcoSoch teams will be able to answer those questions there. Or we will also take another question and answer round at around 12 o'clock, where we'll take in any questions that have not been answered yet. And also, thank you everyone for sending in some wonderful questions for our panelists today, and we'll see if we are able to answer all of them during the course of our talks. And this is Amar here, by the way, and I'm from Daily Dump, and I will be speaking to all of you about composting your kitchen waste at home and how that works. But before that, we have a special guest today, Mr. Harsha from EcoSoch, who are one of our partners, and they've done some brilliant work on solar, and he'll be answering some of your questions and giving a presentation on solar and sunny living, basically. And I'll leave it to Harsha now to start and maybe enlighten us on what EcoSoch does and how everyone can adopt solar and how it really matters. So over to you, Harshana.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks for the kind introduction. Um, so just I think it's a kind of packed talk. I have 40 minutes, Summer.
Yes, Harsha, 40 minutes for the talk, and then we can do
Okay.
questions.
So what I will do is, I mean, normally these talks they could go long, when you have a lot of information. So I've done a lot of pictures kind of presentation so that I can skip the slides faster, and you get a this sort of what is there, and at least understand the basics of solar, and what it takes to why you should go for solar, what it takes to go to solar. So myself, I'm Harsha Kuntur. So just an agenda, just about EcoSoch very briefly, but mainly we talk about why you want to go for solar, and a lot of questions on why are their solar panels really green. I try to address that, and then types of systems and case studies, and talk a little bit about BESCOM, how the policies are, and give you some just a teaser on how the shadow analysis works, and generations, and energy efficiency. These are little teasers. I'll just put it across to you. Of course, you'll have lots of questions on them. I'll try to address if there's something that I can do it after the talk. But of course, you're always welcome to write it in the chat. My colleagues Samant is there, and I think Gopi or Santosh would join later. They would also be able to answer them on the chats as well. If not, you can always write to us, and then we'll try to address them. Just about us, we got incubated and started from Auroville, Pondicherry, and some of you, I'm sure you're familiar with Auroville. We've done lots of installations there, and then started in Bangalore. Bangalore, we've done lots of the residentials and apartments. This thing, our basic premises as a company is that we believe in rooftops. The idea is to use the power and consume it right then and there. We don't Philosophically, we believe in that. We don't believe in these big farms of solar panels, and taking acres and acres. That's needed, but our philosophy is to really look at decentralized, make a self-sufficient homes. So we've done a bunch of installations we have around 300 installations in Karnataka. We do engineering, project management, safeties, maintenance. Solar care is one of the verticals where we maintain the systems, and of course installations. Before we go, just to give you one thing, all the photos that you see in this slide are all our installations. They're not from other outside. Right now, what you're seeing right next to is at a Spiti Valley, at a nunnery, where we have done a solar water pump. But then that brings to why do you need solar, right? I mean, why do people want to go for solar in general? One, of course, it reduces your electricity bill. I mean, if you're going with a BESCOM, then you can actually reduce your bill. You can actually build self-sufficient homes. I mean, you don't need, if you want to build a home in some rural side, and you don't want to deal with anything with the government and their power cuts, I think you can actually do that with solar. You can completely become independent. It actually provides rural livelihood. You'd be surprised, and I was surprised with when in our travels and in our work in the rural side, and we have done it remote areas, and the photo right next to you, what you see is actually the remotest area in India, in Spiti Valley. And there actually the power is crucial, because although the regular power from government is there, but for 6 months in a year there's no power, because it's completely frozen. They literally live in dark, right? I mean, the solar actually could provide livelihood for them. uh, and then sustainable agriculture, right? I mean, you have again a lot of places, because power is not there from the government, you're actually using the power from DG sets to run your pumps, that you can completely avoid, and save it, the power. um, as I said, you can literally start lots of rural industries. You don't really need to depend on the government. And again, one of the points, you don't power even in cities today is not reliable, and you can actually get rid of that aspect of it going solar with the batteries. And of course, when you save money, is equivalent to earning the money. So these are some things that you can actually look tangible, when you put the systems. But there are indirect benefits as well. Um, One, it saves the water. When you run a thermal coal plant, you are actually running a lot of 3,000 liters to generate 1 megawatt hour of energy. You literally spending to cool the towers, where you see this big smoke coming, right? Solar actually doesn't use that much, maybe 100 liters to generate the same amount of energy. Of course, as you see, this is one of the projects in Prestige Ozone we have done in Bangalore. It does, if you see, the roofs do cool down, right? When you put the panels. Uh, of course, the idea is also electrical vehicles. The idea is not to use electrical vehicles with uh, fossil fuels, but to use with a renewable energy, and that's kind of transitioning right now in parallel, and you're seeing it every day in news. Definitely global dependency on fossil fuels. Actually, if you put solar, India doesn't have, we don't have energy. We are not an energy rich country except coal, right? We have lots of coal, but then we depend on fossil fuels. If you have to transition to electrical vehicles, the only way you can get the energy is not, we have right now is solar, wind, and of course nuclear is also there. I'll talk about that a little bit. Impact of climate change. I didn't make it as a main thing, but the only reason why we even started looking at solar is because of the climate change. And of course, when you put a solar plant on your rooftop, it reduces the TND, transmission distribution losses, which are in tune of 20% in Karnataka. And then, of course, when you are doing solar systems on your roof, it actually does create local jobs because you need someone to service them to do it, and you don't need this huge mega power plants which are set somewhere very far off, and then do that. So these are non-tangible benefits, right? Now, if you look at the other point, are solar panels really green? What do you, right? So there is an argument which is going on that, look, there is a nuclear power plants that we should put. uh, I do. Nuclear power plants are good, but then you have, cases of um, uh, uh, the latest one in Tamil Nadu, right? We have done a nuclear power plant. It's called Kundakulam. It's a 2 gigawatts of power plant. It took literally 11 years to build that power plant. And same thing, any power plant still now has always been 10 years minimum the gestation period is. Unfortunately for the climate change, the way it is impacting, we don't have that time. Even if nuclear is a good, and we find a solution for a proper disposal of the nuclear waste, uh, solar could be the transitionary thing between now and when we do really go nuclear. I'm not a pro or against nuclear, but I think there are real concerns. There are environmental concerns. For example, in fishermen in Kundakulam, they actually were against. They did a lot of damage. No one wants to stay in the backyards of a nuclear power plant, and it does have a lot of dependencies, and global uh, wars went on the nuclear power plant. So there are a lot of other issues. Now, if you take the nuclear out, which is by far the least, you know, the pollutant power form of energy, uh, then you take solar. Solar is definitely better than coal in any sense. One study says that if you have solar panels, within 4 years you can actually generate the energy uh, for whatever energy you take. It's called embodied energy. To make a solar panel, it takes 4 years for solar to generate, and then you would be 4 to 5 years. And as a technology, there's a recently article, paper in Nature magazine about how the solar technology, like the Moore's law, it's actually the capacity, the efficiencies of panels are increasing day by day. And when efficiency increases, your embodied energy also reduces. And now people are talking about 2 years to 3 years, to pay back that thing. There are a lot of things I'm sure you would have read. For example, a 3 kilowatt system is equivalent to driving a 225,000 kilometers over its lifetime, of a fossil fuel car. Uh, then the water equivalent is like 9,000 liters you are saving per annum. 79 trees that you're planting, that's an amount of CO2 that you could actually take out when you plant a solar power plant. They actually, last one I didn't understand, but there is an this actually the data source is coming from EPA. It also says about the recycled waste, which is kind of concern to us. When you send some waste to a landfill, of course you have emissions of methane. So we are kind of avoiding that much of waste. If you take the equivalent of methane's equivalent of your carbon footprint. Recycling of solar power plants, of course, there is a lot of talk. Still, we are not in India has not come to a stage where all of these things are getting recycled, but hopefully they will get soon. We have at our office, actually, if you come, we've actually, our name board outside is actually a broken solar panel that we have used for a name board, and we have tables which are with solar panels which are not working. Of course, these are small time solutions, but real thing is to take out the materials out of the panel, which is already there. There are companies that are actually working on that as well. So I hope, that kind of gives you the clear idea of, solar is really not that bad. There have been some talks about, solar, is it really green? And I think, there are cases where one could argue that solar is not that great, but there are also cases where you could actually argue that solar is better if you are using it on your rooftops and generating the power that is equivalent to it. Now, if you go for types of solar rooftop systems, there are 3-4 broad ideas sorry, broad ideas in solar rooftop systems. I'll go one by one, right? And I'll just make it a little more, I won't go too technical into it in this talk. I'll just give you what are the case studies and how people are using it. Broadly, you can name it as solar systems with the batteries and without the batteries. You connect with the batteries. And then also you can say whether my solar rooftop system is connected to the BESCOM grid or it is not connected to the BESCOM grid. Now, if you take batteries with a no grid situation, where you have here in this system, what happens is that typical cases are rural side where you don't have any power available and you want to use in your farmhouse or anything like that, right? That you want to connect. So here, typically, if you look at the connection, I'll just briefly go over this. You have solar panels, and there's a charge controller which converts the solar power and stores in the battery, and that's a DC power that gets stored. Once it gets stored, the power, whenever you need the power in your morning or day, from the battery, like your regular UPS, it converts out, comes to your MCBs or distribution boards, and then comes to the load. So here is one case where Tide, it's I believe it's a vocational training thing outside 6 kilometers away from Bangalore, and they didn't have power, so we actually had provided a off-grid system there. This is another solution. Actually, this is a project that we have done for mobile vocational training. The solar panels that we have installed actually were used to generate the power and store it in the batteries, and the batteries are again used to um, give power for all the appliances that we're using in this particular case for vocational training. And this van was running till last year, so that I believe that recently they have done some other work on that. But this is you can think of applications like that. There is a paper which is written available, I believe, on the uh, website. Then there is also rural microgrids. This is a project that we have done in Demul, which is in Spiti, which is one of the highest. This is the second highest elevated village in India, and this actually produces a power to all the residents. There are like 50 homes there, one of the most picturesque villages there, and I had a great opportunity to work with them, with the villagers there. And we provided lights and the community TV. It was a fantastic to see. These people have never seen the light. Till we went, actually there was no power available at all. The grid was not there. So you actually can think of the solutions and where you can provide it. We also have done a project, for example, on the musical festivals. Again, it's an off-grid system where we store the power in the batteries and then use it to run actually a stage. Some of you might have heard of Echoes of Earth. So this is one of the projects that you can think of. You can think of innovative ways of looking at the battery-based systems and where all they can come. So the second one, which is kind of interesting for our talk today and for the Bangaloreans in some way, is an on-grid system. In an on-grid system, you don't have batteries, okay, and you only have the grid. Uh, you only have the grid. Now, in an on here, what happens is the solar power is generated here, comes to the inverter without storing it in the batteries, right? Immediately that power has to be used somewhere. I mean, the solar panels has already generated the power. Now that power either has to go to the load, if you have loads. If loads are not there for whatever reason, it actually gets sent out to the Bescom, in our case, or if you're not from Bangalore, to your electricity grid, right? Because your loads cannot take it, and solar has already generated the power. So this is the system. Why it's called on grid is because you're actually connecting to the grid level. And these systems are very popular. I mean, today, if you look at Bangalore or across India, when they talk about solar, they only talk about on-grid systems. And it was not true 6-7 years ago, and people didn't even understand what on-grid was. That time, a lot of people, rural villages, if you go, they actually understand what solar was. I mean, solar is and with the batteries, right? Now, this is the most popular thing. I'll go a little more detail into these and present some case studies on this as well. So before you understand, it's a very short video. How does an on-grid system work, right? There are cases that will be interesting for you to know. I'll just play the video and explain how that works. So this is a typical, and then we'll share the link of that on the chat, so you can actually watch this video later. So there are, basic components that we discussed. You have the panels, you have the grid, you have loads that your TVs are, and then there's an inverter which actually converts from DC to AC, right? And now, when a building is, before solar system is connected, all the power is coming actually from the grid to turn on your TV, right? I mean, that's a modus operandi for run the system. But once you connect the solar PV system, even solar is started generating the power. I mean, both the grid and solar, both combined together, are going to come to turn on your appliances, right? There, you can understand these in 5 simple scenarios. On grid system, if the load generation, what is your used TV load, is equivalent to solar, whatever is solar generated, then grid won't be used, only solar will be used to run your TVs, right? Your load is 100 watts, but sometimes solar might be generating more power, than your availability. Then what happens? It sends the power back to the grid. I mean, it supports to the home as well as to the outside. If solar generation is more, but sometimes solar generation is less than the grid, then what happens is, both solar would support your TV, but then also your grid also has to support TV, because solar alone cannot support the TV, or your loads at the home. So both of them would turn on the TV, but then sometimes solar generation is zero, which happens in the night time, right? Night, there is a completely zero. Then only the grid will supply, right? Only grid will supply the power, because solar is not there uh, at night. Now, there's also chances that, which is very important test case, is when the grid is not available, right? What happens to the solar when the grid is not available? Literally, what you see is nothing would happen. Solar grid won't generate, your panels don't generate, and your TV won't run either. The reason is, you don't want solar power to generate. Uh, you don't want solar power to generate something when you can't send the power to the grid, because there could be linemen who could be working on the grid, and it could be a potential dangers for them to work on it. So which is why the system turns off as per the rules and guidelines of the government as well. So that's a 5 scenarios. Hope you got that. Please do listen to the video, and you probably can understand how this whole thing works. Then I'll just go a little more about the solar policy in the state of Karnataka. This is not true in other parts of the state. I'm sure some of you have joined from other parts of India. This is not true in other parts, but in Karnataka, this is what it is. Here, what happens is, government says, okay, look, you are generating the power, great. You're using it within your home, which is also great. But you're also, thankfully, you're giving the power to my grid, right? So Bescom says, okay, I'm going to pay you the money. I'm going to pay you for all the energy that you are giving me, the excess energy that you're giving me. The end of the month, I'll pay you some amount. So what they do first is that they actually look at total energy that is being generated from solar. You have generated some amount, but then some of the amount you have given it to your loads during a month's time. Let's say you have given some 500 units to the home, and some of the power you have actually uh, taken from Bescom also, because in the night time you are actually taking the power from the Bescom to run your loads, right? So you have taken 200 units, let's say. Now, but you have consumed, you have generated 500, you have consumed 300 units, and then you have some of the amount has gone out to the grid. Let's say you have given 200 units to the grid, and you have taken from the grid in the night time 200 units. Then Bescom says, okay, you don't have to pay anything, I'll reduce the bill to zero, right? But on the other hand, if you give the power, if you generate more power and give more power to the Bescom at the end of the month, the net, which is called the export of power, then government says they will pay you 3 rupees 99 paisa for a small homes up to 10 kilowatt, and above that they pay you a different uh, amount. So this is a little maybe confusing for the first time, but please do shoot me questions during the question and answers, or write to us separately, and then we'll definitely get back to you on that. Just on a case study here, this is one of the buildings that we have done in Bangalore. Actually, there's a lot of challenges here. All the roof in solar, actually, one of the things is all the panels should be facing towards the same direction. But here, we couldn't do that because there is that roof that we could do only one panel at a time. So we have actually adapted at the time technology called micro inverters, and since then we have done lots of them across Bangalore. But one of the advantages of this is that you can put panel in any direction, solar would still generating. Unlike traditional systems, you can actually put in any direction. You get the power out because of the microinverter technology. And the second aspect is, you can actually monitor them. How the generations are in each of the directions. That's something that's available with micros. Just this one installation, he has saved around 72,000 rupees. This is another case where the savings are around 1,58,000. This is a monthly generation, monthly generation of energy over last 3 years at the site too. You can see that some of the months you would get more generation, which is usually in the Feb. You can see that Feb is always high. But then the few other months it will be less. During August, July, this is a bad month. I mean, June, July, August, this like 4-5 months till December will be less. So that's something for you to know. This is a residential villa that we have done in Bangalore. We have like 7 of those villas in this area. This is an apartment complex where we have done 105 kilowatt system. Their savings are already around 15 lakhs. It was done in last year, March 2019. They have generated this much so far. So this is a real money that you could actually save when you put the solar panels. This is a Adarsh residency apartment. This is another apartment. So again, I don't have the numbers with them, but the payback periods as of now, it looks like around 5 years. They should get their entire money, whatever they spent on this panel, back. And the solar panels are meant to last for 25 years. Even if they're 20 years they last, you get multiple of your amount that you have spent over the course of the lifetime. Now again, you can actually see the online generation, how each panels are working. There are different technologies. They're a bit expensive, but you can actually do that. So your maintenance of the system could be much more less, and you have a reliable system that actually yourself see it whether something is wrong in the system. And all these days, even the inverters come with a 20, you can go up to 20 years of warranties on these systems. So you can be kind of assured, it's better, in fact, I keep saying that, it's probably safer to put in solar than to put in a bank these days, because banks have no idea when their banks would close. when your FD amount is going to, the interest rates will come down. So solar that way is, it's a physical asset that you're investing on your own systems that actually has a certain value to it, and it has got long lasting value, right? It's always better to think that way. The next is in hybrid systems. In hybrid systems, you have, you generate the power, like we talked about off grid and on grid, right? A hybrid is nothing but combination of both systems. You have inverters that sorry, actually, I didn't change the slide. Sorry, here the image is wrong, but you actually have the batteries here. You can store the power in the batteries and then supply to the load, as well as you can actually sell the power to the grid. You can actually store the power when there is a power cut. As I was saying, right, when there's a power cut in an on-grid system, you cannot generate the power. In this system, you actually can generate the power, store it in a battery bank, and then also use it during the night time. So you can completely go uh, 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 nuts with this system. I mean, this is like really crazy inverters, and they can do a lot of stuff. Short of time that I could not explain. But just imagine that you can actually connect your motors, water pumps, lots of other big ticketed items in your homes, and then you can do lots of stuff. What you see is lithium batteries. We have done some projects. I'm sure some of you have come across or probably already have lithium at home. You can now do these systems with the lithium batteries and then run it. In this particular case, actually, we are running the entire lift, his home for an apartment, his penthouse, lots of stuff. I mean, he just couldn't get a Bescom connection, so we'd actually gone uh, completely on off-grid mode. I mean, it's off-grid with, now he's going for an hybrid, but it has the same capabilities. The reason why he said he will go with the batteries is that he said, I can't wait for Bescom to give me the connection, so I'll just put the batteries and consume it myself. But the idea is to also the same system would be able to sell the power to the grid once Bescom connects to him. This is in one of the houses here. They went for it because they wanted zero transfer time. They didn't want any power cuts. Again, this was done in Bangalore, and they wanted to run pumps. And this system is still working. I mean, it was done in 2014 in Bangalore in a place called Laughlin Waters. This is another good thing. It's in Wayanad, where we have done, in a very picturesque place. Again, he doesn't have any connection there, even if the connections, that given some connection, but again, there are a lot of under voltage, no voltage issues, and he didn't want to do the DG set. So that was a good thing. This is another house, in Bangalore, Reshwams. It's a beautiful house. Again, he wanted to run a water pump here. I mean, he just couldn't get the power. There's a lot of power cuts. It's just outside Bangalore, just I believe in Sarjapur. But then it's a small system, but we also have connected a solar water pump for that. So, I mean, just a regular water pump, that he runs when the sun is maximum there. That's a use case. The other one which I would cover is on the solar water pump, which is very interesting and close to our heart. And of course, in Bangalore, we don't get to do so many projects, but these projects, what we have done is really outside Bangalore. And what you see to the right, in the water pump, just to explain the system, you actually don't need a battery. Pumps can actually run. Pumps can run without any batteries directly connecting to the loads. So in the solar water pump, I mean, you can this particular application that we have done. This is a project that is done with an NGO in Odisha. The idea is that we actually provide the water to the solar water to the water tank there, and the water from the water tank, the water is actually sent out to all the houses. That was a main idea behind this project. It is actually totally funded uh, project as well. I mean, these people, they don't have electricity there, and today when we were there, they would actually have to take bath. They have to actually take bath outside in the in the open areas, in the small ponds. So there's something. There are a lot of healthcare issues and a lot of things. So this was intervention project that was done, and you would be surprised. I mean, there are many villages like that in India, where actually the power grid availability is not there. I mean, even if it's there, it doesn't come all the time. So some of the agriculture projects within Bangalore, this is a project outside Bangalore for one of the farms. Again, they don't have power supply, and they're doing a lot of farming there, and we actually put it on their shed. We have done, I think, 3 pumps there, water pumps to do it. This is a Navdarshanam community in Bangalore, which is, I'm sure some of you have heard of it. Navdarshanam is a sustainable community, and we have done 2 water pumps there. Again, these pumps are working, and of course, you are all welcome to go and see these water pumps. This is for irrigation. Actually, we have done for horticulture. They wanted to do it for 2-acre property. This again in a place called Thali, where we have done that. There are a lot of interesting stories about the village, why it is, and short of time, I can't really elaborate on some of these stories and how solar water pumps could actually be beneficial. So this is a very interesting project, and this is one of my favorite projects. This was actually done for a nunnery. This is in Spiti. There are nuns who live there, and you won't believe they don't get water for 6 months. 6 months they have to go down the lake. And if I get some time at the end during the question and answers time, I'll actually show you some of the slides of this particular project that we have done. They are actually walk down during the snow time to get the water, and there was it was a struggle to even get the fundings for the project. For people to get the funders to go and see it. I'd actually gone there twice to this place. Now they actually get the water. What they used to do, they used to melt the ice sometimes. It is a crazy situation for the nuns there. And actually, solar water pump did make it's amazing amount of difference that done to their lives. So I think, that's pretty much I got. I have, Amar, can I take other 10 minutes or so? Or 5 minutes?
Yes, 5 to 8 minutes. You can take, Harsha, no problems.
So that's about different types of systems. And, you also saw different kinds of applications that solar is used. It is just not to, it's not about climate change alone. Climate change is something that I'm passionate about, and all of you are, but it's also about livelihood and how it has impacted, right? Some things to know, and if you have your own applications, you can also do solar systems. Now, let me talk about sun path and shadow analysis. It's kind of very important for solar. How sun, generates the power, and a lot of people tell you that solar panels has to be kept towards the south angle, and there's a reason why they say it, because sun actually goes down towards south in the winter time during December, during the winter solstice, is at the lowest point when the sun is on the south side. So that's when it's time during the day is very less short. So to optimize those months, actually, one of the reasons why people do say that, okay, you put an angle, usually it's an altitude of that angle, altitude of that place. You want to put the panels, on the roof of your building. The other one, but in summertime, again, sun goes to the north, so it doesn't affect us in Bangalore as such. These angles, but in some places like in Delhi and all, this angle kind of makes a lot of sense, and you really don't want to keep the panels towards the north as much as in south, because you over the year you lose a lot of energy if you keep towards the north. In Bangalore, it's not much, so we don't need to worry from Bangalore. This is a shadow analysis when you do the solar system. There's a video. I'll just show you how the shadow changes, right? We actually do these analysis of how the shadow forms, and we want to ensure that panels are kept where the shadows are there. You can see the shadows are slowly falling, around that time, right? And when the shadows fall, the generation gets low. So, again, this is very, very critical element in solar design. So it's just not that you have roof and we can put the solar. So this is something for you to know. I'll just skip the slides in the interest of time. So this is actually site, what you saw the video, but this is actually site. and we had to really look at all these shadow factors. In this is, I think, Adarsh presidency. All these things has to be. There's a lift room here, which we can't see it here. That lift room was casting shadow here. I mean, so that's kind of we can't see it here. Actually, in the image, it doesn't do the justice. But so there are a lot of there is a skylight here. Again, we couldn't put the solar panels. So a lot of this discussion has to happen very quickly. How the shadow impacts, right? This is a actually you see the generation over the day. You can see that, right? Just skip it. So you can see that, it's kind of interesting when you panels, when the this grid lines are casting shadow here on the panel, the generation could really go down, right? This is 196 versus 24 watts. Huge difference, huge losses. So, which is why it's very important that you keep it, in the shadow. This again, the generation data, just to give you, you get around average Bangalore, you get around 4 units per kilowatt. Uh, you know, if you don't understand what kilowatt is, it's okay. I mean, we can actually tell you other, separately. But 4 units is the amount of energy that you pay for save on your electricity bill. Per unit, you're paying 8 rupees. So for per kilowatt, you actually save 4 units of energy in a day on average throughout the year. So that's an average you can take around 4 for Bangalore. So I'll just do the calculation. We'll skip them. This is the generation of different places in March. Each different buildings are generated differently. This all depends on the shadows and how dusty the panels are, whether the panels are cleaned and stuff. Very briefly, so that's about solar, right? Solar, we discuss about solar, but solar alone does not make us greener, does not make us, uh, 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 sustainable, right? What needs to be done with solar is also energy efficiency. You need to do energy efficient measures so that you can actually consume less power in your appliances, and you can actually reduce even the solar installation. You don't need to put bigger systems. You may do smaller systems. So I'll just go on energy efficiency, right? It's very important that if you have incandescent bulbs, please do change them. Some I've seen them recently, like just a couple of days ago. Some people are still using them. It costs very less, but then over the life of its course, it costs a huge amount, and the amount of um, energy that you use is incredibly high. So LEDs, you can cost more. Probably, I think it's come down now. The LED cost, I think the slide when it was done, but then much less power. It's 7 watts versus 40 watts. So that's something that you to do. This is one of the St. Thomas Hospital. It's a leprosy center that we've done just by reducing the energy consumption in that hospital. Right. First, we recommended them to cut down their appliances. The solar power plant. We reduced it from 150 kilowatt to 70 kilowatt. We could literally save 30 lakh rupees. I mean, incredible amount of savings. Incredible amount. I mean, just by energy efficiency, you can reduce your energy, and then you can actually save 30 lakhs of additional solar power. Otherwise, you need to spend another 30 lakhs to buy the solar panels and put it on your roof. So that's the power of energy efficiency. I mean, if I have to take anything from this talk, please do think that before solar, you should really look at how you go your buildings energy efficient, and then think about solar. Then you can actually reduce your solar capacity that you need. Uh, this quality, I mean, this is just to brief about why it is important to look at quality of the solar installations, because solar are long lasting. It's for 25 years, and you do need to have systems that can run for longer time. So there are lots of components that we use as a company we use, and then if you are going with anyone or if you're doing it yourself, please do look at the good ones and good practices of doing the installation works, because we have seen systems which are done badly, bad. Lots of them on that. Just skip it. This is a ease of maintenance is something, the quality and how detailed the work is done is kind of very important. It's not like regular AC work where you can just um, do the system and then forget. Then after three years you call an electrician to come and fix it. in solar, because the plants are designed to last longer, as long as 25 years, you do need to look at ease of maintenance and workmanship of every project and everything in that. It's not that we have not done everything excellent. We have learned our mistakes as well. In some places, although the workmanship has always been our criteria, still we do, and then we learn, do things. And it's important that, something that I tell, that if you're doing solar, ensure that your solar system is properly done. Installation works are absolutely clean aesthetically as well as uh, technically. These are different installations, different works that we've done. This is now others residency, different projects, different. These are different layouts. Before we do the designs, actually we do all these engineering drawings, ensure that there is no jugaad at the site. Everything has to be done before hand, and that kind of ensures that the systems are work fine. So that's all I think I have. This is one of the resorts that Mango Mist Resorts, where we've done the projects. Um, the whole resort actually runs on solar. So this is Samarthanam Trust. It's for a school for blind. This is an NGO project where we have done. Um, it's a completely. I mean, the whole school actually does amount. The idea behind this was the fund was done to say that the customers would save money on the power, and that money would go directly to the kids who are studying there for their education. So this is just not about solar energy, but it also can work. The money is like a bank. Whatever you energy that you save through solar, it works like a bank, and you deposit that money to do other things, right? So that's the thing. Lastly, I'll just cover this. My last slides, I believe, the maintenance of the plant. It's important that you do have a good online monitoring system, where we don't need to go to the site. We actually can literally monitor what happened at the site from our office, and do if there is any problems or anything like that. So that kind of prevents, we can do proactive maintenance. So that's important. What type of inverters that you use, what of technologies that you use in your solar system is important, because you can actually do this remotely. I mean, you don't need to go to the site to maintain them. So if you're going for solar, just do look at the maintenance, which is very, very important. This is another one where we have done cleaning. Cleaning does save a huge amount of energy. I mean, we talk about at least 10 to 20% of savings, without cleaning and with cleaning. In some areas, this is one of the size buildings that we have done solar panels. Take the AMC of it. Usually, typically a mop or anything would do it. It's like a regular glass, so you can actually do that. Just that you do it in the early in the morning and late in the evening. This is again, we have this long telescopic poles that you can use it. This is one of our installations at Toyota to show in Bangalore. Again, this is safety and everything is a must when you are walking on these walkways. So, whom we, that's my end of talk. And I just, before I end the session, I'll just give you, whom we have access served so far. These are different set of clients, from NGOs to commercial entities to, the non-profits that we have done. Lots of projects, very interesting customers, and very interesting. That's a fun of solar. You get to actually do things with, work with various entities and see how their energy is consumed or utilized. These are some of the apartments that we have done in Bangalore already. I believe we have one of the highest number of apartments that done in Bangalore. Different villas. This is in Prestige Ozone, but there is like, lots of installations. If anyone wants to see, of course, you can always let us know. We can actually send you the photos, or if you want to visit the sites or meet the customers, you're always welcome to. So various projects, this Arvind Eye Hospital, Arvind Eye Care. So that's about it. And this my team, myself, Hemanji is my partner, and is also CEO of the company. Then Nishay heads operations, Venkat heads the technical side. This is our team, no less. Santosh and Gopi, Ajmal and myself. I'm sales as well. So we all, call ourselves as sales help. So if there is anything that you do need, sales or technical, you definitely could reach us out. Um, so I think that's all I have. The last slide, I will say a big thank you. I'll definitely take the question and answers. Just to give you, this is one of the villages that where we have done what the water pump. Again, this has this is 2018, I believe. This particular project was done. Government talks about power being available in the rural side. It's actually not true at all. I mean, we see that there will be line, but they won't get any power. If the transformer goes, for 1 or 2 months, there's no power in those villages because they're remote. I won't blame the government because government does not actually have the that much of money to go and do these things, right? I mean, there are limitations for the government as well. So there is a lot of NGOs actually have come forward to help them. And so this is just a story of us and our work and on solar. Hopefully, all have got something out of this. Please do shoot us a questions. I know that a lot of questions have been asked already, and I'll try to answer in the question and answer session. Amar?
Yeah, thank you, Harsha. It was a wonderful presentation, and webinar is actually called From the Soil to the Sun. So now we've spoken a lot about the sun part of things and the wonderful energy and the bounty of life that sun gives us. Now we'll come to the soil part of the webinar. And this is Amar, and I'm from Daily Dump. We are a 14-year-old waste management company out of Bangalore, and we enable people to compost their kitchen waste at home. And that's where the whole soil aspect comes in. Harsha, are you able to hear me? Is my voice audible?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you're good.
Okay, awesome. So I won't take up too much of everybody's time. Another 10 to 15 minutes maybe to explain just what Daily Dump does and how we feel that by composting your kitchen waste at home, you can create a big impact in terms of the waste that you save from going out into your city and into your landfills. And also, you create a very bountiful and a wonderful material for the earth. And actually, we ran a poll amongst all the participants in the webinar before they registered, and I saw that around 50% already compost. So if people want to share their best practices on chat or to ask any questions, please feel free to do so. So I'm going to share my screen, and this is where we start. Okay, so what is compost? And the beauty of the whole process and the material is that all the food waste that we generate or any other kinds of organic waste or any organic matter that lives on earth actually finally decomposes and it becomes a part of soil. And decomposition of organic matters creates a wonderful material called compost, which if added to the soil is so nutritious that it helps plants to grow better, it enables the crops to grow better, it maintains the health of the soil, and so on and so forth. And so when we saw that more than 60% of waste that is produced in Indian homes and in Indian cities is just organic waste, which is being put into these large garbage trucks and is being mixed with so much plastic and it's being taken to landfills, is dumped on the side of a road. It's so smelly and so visible. We thought that this is such a wonderful and an easy solution to a large chunk of your waste, which eventually right now goes to the dump yards, which can easily be composted at home and can be fed to the plants and to the soil. From there, I would move on to the benefits of compost. And on your screen, I hope you can see we've laid down some 15 basic benefits. The first few are related to soils. It's a nature's way of recycling. Adding compost to the soil to the plants builds a very good root structure in the plants, which makes them very strong and very healthy. It increases the organic matter in soils, which again comes down to the whole nutrition aspect. And it reduces the water demands for plants. Compost can actually hold a large amount of water in it, and you enable your plants to grow. It attracts and feeds earthworms, which are of course wonderful materials for the soil and for the health of the soil. It can extend the growing season. It can ensure that the crops are healthier and they grow over a longer period of time. It reduces our reliance on chemical fertilizers. If more and more compost is actually generated by cities and it's sent out to farmlands, the amount of chemicals that we have in our food that we consume these days can actually be lowered, and organic compost can actually be used for the growth of crops. There are limitations to it, of course, based on the kind of crop that you're growing and the kind of chemicals that have already been added to the soil that it is being grown on, but it's definitely a solution in the long run. It controls soil erosion. It improves the vitamin and the mineral content in the food that we eat, being a nutritious material. It also reduces the plant stress from drought and freezes. Again, everything is coming down to the same the nutrition of the soil and the health of the soil in terms of plant. And the last two things that you see on the bottom right, it makes a home guilt-free. And this is why I want to highlight that compost. Normally we say that if you compost at home, you're just saving so much waste from going out. It's a wonderful waste management solution, but it's much more than that. It reduces global warming, and application of compost on a large scale has actually been proven by research to reduce the average temperatures around the world. So it's an amazing material that has multitude of benefits, and one of them, of course, is that it also enables that the amount of waste that we generate at home does not go out, and it's actually managed in a sustainable manner. And obviously, there are three different kinds of composting that happens: aerobic, anaerobic, and vermicomposting. At Daily Dump, we mostly focus on aerobic composting, where many of our composters they have in which you can add your daily kitchen waste, and you can add a powder called as a cocoa peat powder. There's nitrogen in your waste, there's carbon in the cocoa peat, and in the presence of a lot of air, which is oxygen, the whole thing converts into compost. So aerobic is the kind of methodology that we use. The vermicomposting with the earth forms is also very popular, and is used in places where there's enough land space and you can dig a pit and put all of your organic matter in that and compost it. And why do you need to start today? First, so we say there are 9 reasons to start composting as soon as possible. The first one being you don't need a PhD to do this. It's a very simple uh, uh, process that you can just do it at home. And secondly, you have all the raw materials. Composting is not something that you would want. You would have to go out and find things to do it. You have the waste at home. All you need is to start composting it. Now, to compost, there are various ways. There are, we have composters that people install in larger apartment complexes, communities. We have composters where people do it in their homes, in their balconies. But based on where you stay and what kind of a solution you want, you can start composting just today if you need to. It reduces the strain on the public system because it makes sure that the waste that you are composting at home is not again going out and is being carried out in trucks, and a lot of carbon footprint is not spent on the same. Fifth is mixing organic with other waste is bad for the earth. If your waste goes out, and sometimes we also get complaints from customers that even if they do segregate, when it goes out, the municipality van or people who are actually handling the waste eventually, they kind of mix it and it kind of gets into a mess. So, but by ensuring that you compost at home, you're actually not mixing it. You're only giving out your dry waste, which can actually be used for recycling it and upcycling it and create value out of that material. Sixth being, it's a responsible thing, it's an awareness thing, and it's very simple. Composting is really, really simple. So it's just very logical that you do it. The seventh thing is helps rag pickers and recyclers earn more. And like Harsha was also mentioning in terms of solar about the whole creation of jobs thing and livelihoods aspect, waste is also a big livelihoods issue. And by mixing all the waste, our cities, what they do is finally when the waste goes to the rag picker or it goes to the person who's collecting the waste and is getting a livelihood out of it, they don't get the right kind of material to make the best benefit out of that. So by segregating waste and by making sure you're giving out only segregated waste and you're composting your waste at home, you are ensuring that the right material reaches the rag pickers and they get the most benefit out of that material. And of course, compost is nutrition for the earth. And then lastly, it's a great way to remember that we are all connected. And, like I mentioned, everything that once lived finally has to become compost. Composting is literally like, some of our customers say it's like meditation, some say it's like practicing a hobby. Once you start doing it and you realize that all your waste after, say, a period of 30 to 40 days turns into this wonderful, nutritious material that when you smell it, it smells like fresh earth. And it's almost life-changing for some people. And it's a wonderful solution also. And then the next question that comes to mind is, if decomposition is a natural process, then what is Daily Dump's role and what are we doing as an organization? So just to reiterate, we started in 2006. What we do is we make composting not only simple but also fun and a very easy thing to do. So if you're composting in your house, you don't have to worry about things like smell, you don't have to worry about insects or the process going wrong. If you do the process correctly, and what we also do is some of our home composting units and our community units are great to look at. It shows that there is mindset change, and the composting that you're doing at home, you actually show it to people when somebody comes and visits your house. And that we think is very, very fundamental and important, that waste should not no longer be a thing that is treated in the backyard, or it's taken off to a place where you can't see it and it's treated there. You can actually treat your waste right in front of your eyes and compost it, and and it's fine. It's a wonderful solution, and it won't be a health hazard at all. And lastly, how come so few people compost at home? We feel many urban Indians don't know. I mean, it's amazing that when we go out for talks and meet people, many times we realize some people just don't have the awareness yet that it is a solution, and it's something that needs much more awareness and campaigning. It needs to have a movement around it. Many people say they don't have a space for a pit for composting, and that's another myth we want to break, that you don't only compost in a pit. You can do it in other ways, and you can have products that are sitting in your balcony to do it. Some people create their own composters using the older products that they have in their homes, but it is possible to do it even in smaller spaces. Even if you live in a 2-bedroom apartment, you can do it in your balcony. Third thing is, people feel a pit attracts rats and it's difficult to access. Not true. If the waste is mixed and it's literally rotting, then of course it can attract rodents. But composting is different. When you actually compost in the correct manner, you will see that there is food waste sitting in your composter, but it's still not smelling, and hence it does not attract rats and rodents. Fourth thing, people have a fear that composting is unhygienic and pest ridden. It's not. It's literally exactly the opposite. It's a solution to all the unhygienic and environmental problems that waste is creating outside. It's something that helps to solve that problem when you're actually creating a wonderful organic material at home. Lastly, there was no product range that was functional and looked beautiful, and that's what Daily Dump has done. We created India's first home composting unit, and what that did was that enabled people to see that yes, there could actually be a product sitting at your house, just like your washing machine or your fridge, a product that helps you to take care of your waste and enables you to make sure that you are not contributing to the waste problem that is happening outside in your city. Coming from that point, I'll just quickly show everybody the product range that we have before we go down into the question and answer session. Yes, so again, like I mentioned, Daily Dump, we've been helping clean up India since 2006. We have over 50,000 individual families who are using our composting solutions in their houses. We are present in about 17 cities where we have our partners who can help your home or your community or your organization or your college to compost. And like I mentioned all these examples, composting can be done on various scales, and there are different kind of products that help you to do that. And of course, livelihoods. Many of our composters, as you'll see in the photographs coming in the slide, are made out of terracotta material, which are actually made by artisanal communities or the potters from around the country, and hence they also create livelihoods for our craft communities and enables their growth as well. Now this is one range of composters that you see of different shapes and sizes and with different names. The third one, called Prithvi composter, for example, is a vermicomposter, where there's a pot. The lower pot, you actually put it into the soil, and you put the top pot on top of it, and you start putting your daily kitchen waste along with dried leaves. But the fourth and the fifth composter, the Mota Lota, small and large, are simply home composting units. The small one is for a family of 1 to 3 people. The large one is for a family of 3 to 4 people. And you can keep it in a balcony, and you can start putting your daily kitchen waste. But along with the kitchen waste daily, you have to add a couple of powders called coco peat or demix powder and a microbial culture to fasten the process of composting. And as you can see in the picture, composters made out of terracotta can fit in a balcony. You can keep it right next to your plants. And all you need is a space which is well aerated. You cannot keep a composter in a closed room or a very closed basement. It has to be well aerated. And as you can see, there are various shapes and sizes that composters come in. And this is the harvested compost from somebody's composter that is now ready to be put into plants. The composters also come in, like the previous composters that you saw here, all of them are stacked. As you can see, there are multiple pots, one on top of the other. It's a three-pot system called the Khamba three-tier. You start off using the first pot, and then you move on to the second one, and then the third one, and that's how you keep the whole process continually moving. And of course, after the webinar, we'll be sharing with all the participants by email videos on how these composters work, and we have a YouTube channel where you can see it as well. But we also have composters which are not stacked, and you can keep them in a row one after the other and start using the first one, then the second one, then the third one. And by the time the third one is filled, the first one is ready with compost. And the average time that it takes to compost kitchen waste is about 30 to 40 days from the first day that you actually started using a composter. We also have a recyclable food grade plastic range of composters for people who cannot lift heavier terracotta pots and shift them when you're using the terracotta products, or people who are living in smaller towns and cities where a daily dump outlet is not close to you. You can order these on our website or on Amazon, and you can start composting with these as well. And this has a range of gobbles and chomps, they're called. And as you can see, another photograph of a composter being used right at the entrance of a house. And you can see uh, the wonderfulness of the picture, that there's a sofa right there and there's a composter sitting right outside, and that has lots of waste in it, but still there's no smell, and it kind of fits in into the whole house. And of course, then, once you do compost, all that wonderful compost you can put into the plants, and you can start feeding them. Then we come to another kind of composting called leaf composting, and this is a typical leaf composter which comes in 3 different shapes and sizes. And this is only for composting your dried leaves or your biomass or any vegetable cuttings or any garden cuttings that you have from your garden surrounding the surface. And also if you're a part of an institution where you have a huge garden space that needs a composting solution, because what we see many times, all these dried leaves that fall on the roadside, people actually burn, and that actually is a carcinogenic thing. It can cause cancer, and the best solution again is to compost the dried leaves in these composters. And then what the picture that you see here is of a composter called the AGA, which is for community level composting. Now this picture is from an apartment block where they have several apartments, and all the waste from there is collected by the housekeeping person, and he comes and puts it into this AGA composter. As you can see, there are 5 of them lined up in this picture. So you start off with the first one, then the second, then third, then fourth, and fifth. And by the time all 5 are filled with the waste, and it would have taken about 40 to 50 days to do that, you come back and you remove the compost. And of course, in a community, the number of composters that you need would depend on the size of your community and the kind of space that you have. As well. And there's another one called Gobble Max on the right that you can see. It's for slightly smaller communities, or for restaurants, or for smaller canteens where you have a small space right next to the canteen or behind. And if you're part of any organization or a business that has those canteens, we've done it for factories as well. So anywhere where food waste is actually composting can fit in. And similarly, we have other products that we do. For example, this is a segregation stand for separating your waste into different categories of dry waste, reject waste, electronic waste, and giving it out. And we have books for children, and we do lots of work around curriculum and education. And you can, of course, follow our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages of Daily Dump, or go to the website dailydump.org to know a lot more about us. So, just in the interest of time, I would not take any more time, because we're already at about 12:10. But now what we'll do, Harsha, is directly jump into the question and answer session, where you can answer questions about solar. I'll be asking you a few,
Sure.
and I will be able to answer some of the composting questions. And I would really urge, because there are some things related to composting that are coming up, for people to go to the websites of Daily Dump. And for any more information, you can also go to the EcoSoch website, as was displayed by the EcoSoch team. and go there. So one of the questions, Harsha, that I was looking at was the thing around maintenance cost, and it was also a very repeated question that had come in
Yes.
initially. So we did talk about your initial investment and your. So can you just speak a little bit about how you guys calculate the ROI, and if that also includes the maintenance you're spending on the unit?
Right. See, maintain typical. Sorry. So if I'll just, before I go to the maintenance, I'll just do something on the costing, because a lot of people might be interested in how much this actual system cost, which I didn't really mention it in the course of discussion. The You can take roughly 1 kilowatt of system cost as around, for a small residential systems, it will be around 90,000 rupees. For a small residential, so for a 3 kilowatt system, you're looking around 2,70,000 rupees. For a residential, for a good system. Okay, there are like systems that are little lower in technology and their lifespan. They You can actually do it even at around 2.4 lakhs, 2.5 lakhs. But then when it comes to bigger projects like apartments, and which are 100 kilowatt and above, you know it doesn't cost 90,000 per kilowatt, but you're looking at around 50,000 rupees per kilowatt. So literally, as a scale becomes big, the cost of solar also comes down drastically. Same thing with the maintenance. When you are really looking only for a maintenance of a small system, it might take a long, if you monetarily, if you take, it is much cheaper to do maintaining a big plant versus a small plant. But then when it really comes to homes, you're talking about spending twice a month to clean these modules, and you're going to spend maybe 10 to 15 minutes to clean, again, 8 panels or so. I mean, depending on how dirty they are. But let's say you maximum half an hour, right? Usually, typical your uh, domestic help, whoever is there, they can actually do that work. As I said, it's very easy to clean. It's like cleaning like a glass, but twice a month. So that doesn't, need much of money. I mean, probably 100 rupees you can take it if you're doing it yourself, right? Uh, but then if you're doing a bigger system, you can roughly take around 1% for the maintenance cost. If your cost is 50 lakhs of a project, it's a 100 slot system, you're spending around 5,000 rupees, something like that.
Thank you, Harsha. So another question that I saw was repeated a couple of times in our Excel sheet that we got was around the rainfall. So people were interested to know, does rainfall has any impact on the systems that are installed on rooftop terraces?
Yes, absolutely. So what we look at in fact, I showed one of the things on the generation graph. In the month of August, July, August, September, October, November, December, these are the like low generating months, because we get rains in Bangalore. But you saw that, it's not much of a difference. I mean, if I can uh, quickly share the screens, just I'll spend 1 minute on that slide.
Sure, sure.
So that uh, can you see my slides?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, so this is a monthly generation, right? And a good month is like let's say February or March. March is a good month. I mean, you actually don't get uh, uh, rain. You actually get a good sunlight. There are clear skies. You do get a good generation. Again, February is also the same. If you look at these months, you get a more. But on a lowest end, it's August, right? If you look at it, if it's on the higher side, if you're generating on 5 units, on the lower side, you're generating 3 units. So you're looking at that variation of generation per kilowatt of energy, during the rainy season. But rains doesn't mean that you don't get power, because you do get sunlight. It requires a sunlight for energy to come. So even if it's a cloudy day, you get some amount of power, but not necessarily the maximum extent. Anything that's a shadow, a cloud is a shadow for us, a dust is a shadow. Whenever they are there, the generation will come down, but it won't completely a zero.
All right. And uh, another question that I saw, Harsha, was around. So somebody had mentioned, how do I convert my apartment into a solar powered home? Do I need to get a permission or convince my society, or I can also start it at my own level in my apartment?
Right. We have done many apartments already. The simple procedure for that is to, you can talk to any of the solar vendors and get a rough costings, budgetary quotes for yourself. Once you do that, you can go to the management committee and say, okay, this is a budget, that we have. These are the savings that we would get. You don't need to do the full detailed studies, but rough studies, we can actually look at the Google Maps and then can just approximately say, okay, this is the amount that you need. You will have to share your electricity bill to do that approximate budgetary quotations for anyone, right? Once you do that, then you can actually talk to you get an approval from BESCOM, then you actually negotiate with the vendors. And actually the vendors who are is there, including us, what we do is we actually take up the whole work, including the BESCOM work. Getting the permissions from the government to complete installation, so you don't have to run around. Actually, that will be the job of any solar integrator. And it's quite possible. It's available now this year. Last year there was a talk that for the apartment complexes they might actually cut down on the or in general the solar on some of the policies. Because ESCOMs was thinking that they're going to go in losses if everyone puts solar, right? So they kind of are competing with us. Now that aspect as because this May 22nd, KERS, which is a regulatory commission, has actually issued new orders stating that the earlier policy would continue for till March 31st of next year. So I think you have time, but I would recommend very much that this policy, whatever we have, may not last long, because that has happened in other states where they've actually stopped solar policies. So as of now, it's available for anyone in Bangalore to go.
And just from my personal thing, Harshas, when you mentioned that they've stopped solar policies in other states,
Right.
so in those states, if I have a house there, I am not able to get a solar installation done. Is that
no, okay? So there are two types. One is off-grid system. Of course, you are allowed to do, right? You can allowed to do. Now, what they have done is they didn't stop solar as a completely, right? What they have done is they tweaked the policy to actually discourage the house owner to go solar. How? Because you generate the solar power and you make money only if you are giving it to the government, right? And they have to give you some amount of remuneration or cancel your electricity bills. They'll say, you are buying solar electricity grid from BESCOM today. Your electricity bill actually you'd see 8 rupees per unit. Even at a highest slab, you're including taxes, it comes to 8 rupees or 8 rupee 40 paisa, right? Government says, but then when they buy solar power from us, they say, okay, I'll just buy it at 2 rupees. At 2 rupees, if you won't make any income out of it, right? It's almost like being charitable. Okay, that we could do, but not with the government. I mean, we don't have to be charitable with the government so much. So it doesn't work. I mean, economically, they tweak the policies to stop or discouraging people to go for solar. But off-grid systems, you want to have batteries, of course, that they can't stop, because that's your independent homes that you build, you are allowed. But only on-grid systems where you have to interact with the BESCOM grid, this problem arises.
all right? And another question, Harsha, was around the estimated life of a solar panel, and if you are aware of any ways that the industry people are planning to recycle the panels, like you mentioned, reusing them as other products before. But if
Right.
there's anything else that you know of recycling them after their estimated life.
Yeah. So on the recycling part of it, the, right now we don't have any units. I mean, in India to do the recycling each at a cell level, right? I mean, we can't do that. They can actually burn these things and take the metals out. There's a lead. Uh, in fact, they could reuse aluminum. The frames are there. The glass can be reused. I mean, you can actually do those things. Today, it's not there, but there's already PV cycle. There's an NGO that is actually working on that on a global scale to actually look at reusing them. Typically, today the life of these panels has still not come to the end date. I mean, they last for 25, 30 years. So, till that stage has not come where you are uh, swamped with solar panels. But there will be soon. I mean, in next 15 years or so, you would actually start seeing those. Maybe in 10 years, actually, we do have from 2010 systems are running. So in 10 years, you would start seeing this issue of recycling. But then you can actually definitely aluminum and all those easy to recycle. I mean, the problem comes when it comes to the metals inside the materials inside the cells. How do you reuse them? But they're already techniques that they've figured out to do that. We don't have it yet. To answer question, in India we don't have it yet to recycle everything. Aluminum, yes.
Right. Thank you, Harsha. And maybe last 2-3 questions now. One thing that people have been repeatedly asking, again, coming back to the same government regulation thing that you mentioned before, is there if for people who joined in from other places which are not in Karnataka, is there one place for information around solar policies that people can go and refer to, and how do they get to know about?
Right. Usually that you can actually have to find out from your local um, ESCOMs, who are the utility grid companies are. You can actually find in their website. Most of them have got pretty good websites about their policies and stuff. So you can actually can log into your local solar. You can search for solar policy for the state Kerala or anything, and they're very detailed policies. And this is not driven just by the states; it's actually driven from the central government. So there are a lot of these conditions that they're put on states that they should do solar. Right. The question is, people tend to do these farmlands, solar panels and these huge farmlands that you see in the TV, because that's where it's easy for the not to name any political this thing, but for them to make a deals, it's much more easier to do it at that scale. Whereas individual residential homes, it doesn't interest them. It's just a vested interest that they play to do those big farms, but actually it's ideally it should be done on the individual residential homes. So some states are allowing. I mean, Karnataka is a good state that has kept their focus on residentials as well, but some states you don't have it. But all of them are driven by the states, central and then state governments that have issued all those policies, and you should be able to look up on Google actually.
All right, and just now one question has come in: if a solar panel glass cracks after the installation, is it possible to just change the glass?
No, we can't change the glass. I mean, this is like really tightly done panels. I mean, they're literally sandwiched the cells between the glasses. If it does, first thing, the cell would have broken itself, so you can't do anything after that. It's very difficult to salvage something out of a broken panel because you would already created some cracks into the cells as well.
Right. And we've got a comment from one Ms. Prashanti about composting in their community and how it's become a spiritual practice for them.
Yes, okay.
Thank you so much, Prashanti, for that. It really makes our day. And I'm just going through the questions, Harsha, to see if there's anything that we've not covered. And there are a couple of interesting questions, Harsha, also about people wanting to start business in solar industry. Do you guys have any partnerships that you?
Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, I missed the questions on the side. Definitely, actually, we do have associate partners program. We actually work with anyone who is interested in solar because, as I keep saying, we as a company, as EcoSoch, cannot reach out to many people. Not any single solar entity company in India today cannot do it. It requires a lot of people to join hands together. A lot of solar companies has to join. A lot of people who are interested, passionate about solar has to join. So we actually do have a associate partner program. It's like Delhi Dump Outlet, for example, right? We do have similar program where we work with them as a partner, to the projects, and then we take, if there is train you on various aspects of what it takes to do a solar system on certain rooftop, and then there'll be commercial aspect to it as well. Yeah, definitely. Please do contact us if you're interested to be part of this journey. I think it will be wonderful.
Awesome. And one more question, Harsha, from Prashanti, that she says we have many solar panels in our community, but right now we are only pumping it back to the grid. We are not using it for our own consumption. Is that a good thing to do?
Right. Actually, so if it's a pumping to the grid, Ms. Prashanti, actually, what would happen there by default, right? I mean, they actually go to your loads first. Actually, they are not sent to the grid. But the nature of the way these connections are done, usually they are called net metering systems. There's something called gross metering also, but that is not followed. I mean, where we only sell it to the grid. Usually, they are very, very less. I mean, maybe 1% of the only plans are in Bangalore like that. I'm very sure that in your case also you'll be using the power in your Bescom, in your layout or in your apartment complex and sending the excess only to the grid, which is a good thing. I mean, otherwise, if you want to store all the power in your apartment itself, then you need to have a battery bank. And the battery banks are very, very expensive. I mean, to store that much of energy. So we always say that use Bescom grid or your utility grid itself as a battery, right? You send the power during the morning time and use that power from them during night time. Now, what happens to your solar power? That's a next question is what happens to your solar power that you generate now, right? So after solar has come, for the first time in India, actually, they've started giving the power to the farmers during the morning time. Otherwise, if I don't know, some of you may have come across in the rural side, most of the farms they run during the night time because that's when the loads are not there in the cities, and then they give the power in the night. Now, because solar power is there, which generates in a good amount during the morning time, now they've actually started giving power in some of the feeder lines in the villages are being turned on. So your solar power, what you're generating in your apartment and you're not consuming it in your place, is actually going to some farm somewhere getting used. So in general, it's a good thing. It's getting balanced.
Right. And a question from Svetlana. It says, "Thank you, Harsha. Just wanted to also check if you could shed some light on foldable panels and portable ones."
Right. Yeah. So there are, in fact, we used to have foldable panels. I mean, not to sell, but just for our own academic purposes. They are very much there, and they do work. The thin film modules that they come. In fact, we're working with one company called Merlin Solar. Uh, we don't, very expensive. The applications that are there is for like moving vehicles. Like for example, I've shown you one of the vehicles that where we have done the panels. That actually is a solid panel. That time the technology was not there. Today, if you have to do that same project, I would use these flexible panels. Just on the costing part, it is almost four times the cost of a regular panel, right? But they do have flexibility and they do work. They've got better technologies in that. In fact, the Merlin actually is started by Indian uh, uh, entrepreneurs in US, and they actually sold the system again to an Indian company now. They're stationed here. Good friend of mine, Prasad. They do these panels actually. I mean, very much available in India. I mean, if you have any applications that you do need flexibility, you can't store these, carry them big. These are available today.
Awesome. And one question has come from one Mr. Vinay Harsha, and he's asking, does solar power voltage fluctuation damage the inverter?
No, see, the inverters actually have got a range. That's the whole point of the inverters, because solar actually does not have a constant voltage at all. It does fluctuate, as you rightly pointed out. Now, the inverters actually do work in a range. I mean, whenever you see inverters tech sheet, spec sheet, you actually find the lowest and the highest where it is, right? And that's when it starts pumping the power out to the grid, if that is in the range. But if it's not below the range, inverter actually shuts down. It doesn't work. So you do have protections to handle that. That's a good question, yeah.
Right. And one Mr. Vijay is asking for, that's for composting of 200 kg wet waste on daily basis. So just to answer that, Mr. Vijay, you can use our AGA composting units that Dailynam provides. And after this webinar, I'll send you the details on the same, and we can take that discussion forward. And I'm just checking, Harsha, if I can find any more questions that have been left unanswered.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll just answer one meanwhile. One of the questions that sent on this thing. Finding the right vendors, I think what you should look at for the right vendors is someone right vendors and right products. I mean, more than one is vendor part, but also the parts, that components that they use. You should look out for those as well. How strong those companies are. For example, solar manufacturer, right? He's supplying a panels for 25 years. You want to ensure that that company which is supplying that warranties for 25 years also could last for 25 years, right? Otherwise there's no point of warranty. So you should look out for those. Then you should also look out for the inverters. How smart is the inverter? Can I reduce my energy maintenance cost of it? Remotely monitoring it. So those choices are very, very important. The third point comes to the quality of it, and it's absolutely important that the people who are doing solar, including should follow uh, high quality electrical access products. That is where people cut corners to make money, right? Panels, maybe everyone sells the same panel and you get it in the market, right? But to cut corners to make money, I've seen, ridiculous amount of systems that are being installed uh, with no quality, and the mistakes. There are people. I mean, we have done mistakes. Sure. I mean, our installations teams have done mistakes, and that should be corrected. I mean, people should be able to do that and learn out of the mistakes. And vendors who today, unfortunately, who have joined, probably they also have joined with passion to come in solar, but then they may not have enough knowledge and experience in the field to know what problems come in the future. And then they may not support you in long run, right? So those things are very, very important. Who you're, even if the front end team is there, who's the back end team which is supporting you, and are they doing a good job? And talking to the earlier installations, looking at the customers, their profiles, and meeting the customers. I mean, you should definitely ask the vendors to allow you to meet or talk to the other customers, so that you learn from the experience. So that'll be another good thing.
Yeah. And Harsha, one more thing somebody had written was, what are other solar related things one can do in a household apart from electricity? There was some such question before, I remember.
Yeah, right. I mean, so water pumps is something that you could do, right? I mean, water pumps you could do. You won't believe. I mean, till recently we used to all have calculators. I mean, all the calculators run with solar power, and it doesn't even need sunlight. It actually needs your light, ambient light. I still have it at office, actually. Keyboard, a remote keyboard. Actually, it's a laptop keyboard which is completely runs on solar, a wireless keyboard, right? Uh, you could literally make applications. There is a application to generate uh, the wind. It's like a fan, right? You can have a application just for a fan, and this one person actually in at Vidhan Sauda uses that fan to use the air to for the corn, to blow the corn. Instead of using the pipe to blow it, he uses a fan through the which is connected to the solar panel. I mean, you can think of those innovative applications. ACs could be run. I mean, you actually could run ACs on the solar pumps, solar panels, not just the water pumps. If you, I mean, it does cost little money, but if you are investing in a remote area, right, instead of buying 1 crore property in Bangalore, maybe you are spending 30 crores outside, 30 lakhs outside Bangalore, maybe spend 5 to 8 lakhs. You would actually can get a system that can make you completely independent of electricity grid and have all the amenities of the urban life at the same time. I think you can literally believe that solar work. You transition to solar part, you can transition, migrate. You should not be worried about it.
And last question we take, Harsha, because it's 12:36 in terms of time. One thing on solar cookers, somebody just asked, where can I get information on solar?
We actually Aerobic has done some amount of work. I mean, if you have gone to Aerobic, there is there's the biggest solar dish antenna shufflers they call it, which was done long ago. There are that kind of things are now. There's one company in Queens, I think Queen or King, I think one of them, or Prince, one of them. I know that starts with one of these three. They do these those big dishes for if you have a bigger like restaurant and all, you can do that. For a small for a home base, there is one company, Baruni. We have done a solar system for their office. They actually manufacture these things. I can pass on their contact. Then you can probably talk to them. These are small things where you can cook your idlis and things like that.
Awesome. So, again, thank you, Harsha, for making time for the webinar today. And it was quite enlightening. And also for all the participants who joined in. And of course, from the soil to the sun, today's webinar was about mostly solar. And also we touched upon a few things about composting. But the idea, again, is behavior change, right? If we don't make decisions as consumers and mindful decisions, and we kind of know what our buying decisions impact is on the environment or on the earth or on humanity, then I think I would just like to leave it on that note. And Harsha, if you have anything to add before we wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks Amar, for giving us an opportunity to actually talk here. With all our audience, I think it's wonderful. Lots of questions. I think this was the highest number of questions that I actually got in other compared to all the other webinars that I have. Please do share your questions. My you can Amar can probably share my phone number and email as well as others.
Yeah.
To all of you, and there are questions that we'll try to put fact sheet and then answer your questions that are there in that, and maybe we can reach back to you. And of course, if you have any requirements that you're welcome to call us. And again, on the last one, on the partnership, we are very much open for it, and we would like to welcome anyone who is equally passionate about solar and equally passionate about environment. There's a lot more opportunities, and I think there is a lot of negativity on solar. That does it make uh, environmental impact? Yes, it does. But what are the choices we have? Compared to coal and fossil fuels, I think solar does stack apart from all those things. Nuclear is way too far away, and you have coal, which is killing today. So you can look solar as a transition thing, but for a long time. I mean, when you do installations, that you should systems would last longer. So environmentally, you would be still doing the right thing. So you should definitely look into that aspect as well. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just share my number. It's 9535240349. I don't know whether I can share this number to everyone, but and my email, I'm just sharing it on the screen. So my email is ashar@ecosource.com. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Harsha, and thank you everybody for participating. And have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Same here. Yeah.